If you're unaware, T-Mobile calls themselves the Un-carrier, which is fitting, considering they've just unraveled their price lock guarantee for new customers. If you ask me, that's pretty uncool. If you're uncomfortable with a company that says one thing but does another, then stick with Xfinity, whose whole home Wi-Fi, wired internet, service, speed, and reliability are unparalleled. Avoid the Un-carrier. Stick with Xfinity. Effective for new customers after 1/17/24. T-Mobile's price lock will only reimburse your last bill if you terminate service due to a price increase.
June 11th. That is the last day for voting in the primary election here in Las Vegas. So who exactly gets to vote in a primary, and what do the outcomes mean for all of us? Today on CityCast Las Vegas, we go through this sometimes complicated primary ballot with Las Vegas Weekly editor-in-chief Shannon Miller. We talk about which are the hot races, the not much of a lot races, and how all voters can make the most of this crazy big election season. It's Wednesday, May 29th. I'm David Figler, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. Shannon Miller, welcome, and tell me right off the bat, what do you think have been the highlights of this primary season?
Hi, David. It's so good to be here. Well, I'm sure you saw in the news last week, Culinary Union ripped about 18 endorsements from candidates who voted for a 2023 bill that took away daily room cleaning in hotel rooms.
As a matter of law, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting. I mean, not exciting for the people whose endorsements were ripped, but kind of rustled things up in the primary election stage. Those endorsements that were ripped include Senate Majority Leader Nicole Cannizzaro, Assembly Speaker Steve Yeager, and one I thought was really interesting, who's running for County Commission District C, is Shannon Bilbray Axelrod. She's running against Hunter Kane for Ross Miller's seat. He's not seeking re-election.
Does she have a big primary challenge, Shannon Bilbray Axelrod?
No, I believe it's just Hunter Kane running against her, in the primary. So it's just those two.
And the Republican side has a number of candidates too?
Yes, it does. It has 3 candidates, and those are April Becker, Gail Powers, and Thomas Wagner, who April Becker might be a more familiar name for people.
Okay, so we've got some culinary, I don't want to call it shenanigans, but, ripping endorsements from people, really the leadership of the Democratic Party, and one of the longtime stalwarts of the Democratic Party, Shannon Bilbray Axelrod. So what other lowlights, I guess, maybe basically the stuff that makes you go, what's going on, are you seeing in this primary season?
In CCSD Trustee District E, for example, there is one candidate who is vice chair of the Clark County chapter for Moms for Liberty, which people's ears usually perk up when you hear that name because they've been a major force in pushing forward book bans, anti-LGBTQ kind of policies, and sometimes opposing the teaching of critical race theory. So I saw a really great story about that in the Nevada Current by April Corbin Gurnis. I think that's kind of something that people's ears might perk up when they hear about.
And so who are the candidates in that race? And who's the Moms for Liberty candidate in that race?
It's Lola Brooks who's leaving that office. The candidate who is the chair for Moms for Liberty, her name is Lorena Biasotti. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Other candidates that are running include Camilla Bywaters, Ryan Kissling, Leonard Lyther, Joshua Logie, Jeremy Sutters, Matthew Tramp, and there might be other candidates, but this is kind of a list I'm reading from the Nevada Current.
Any other kind of interesting races, or I guess I'm focused on kind of the wow moments that are happening in this primary season that stand out to you, Shannon?
Yeah, I think one that's interesting to watch is the seat for County Commission District C. That's held by Ross Miller right now, and he is not running for re-election. So as I mentioned earlier, Shannon Bilbray Axelrod and Hunter Kane are running against each other in that one. And it's just interesting, I think, because Bilbray Axelrod has a track record as a Nevada Assemblywoman, where Hunter Kane is kind of a newcomer. He ran in at least 2020 for the same county commission seat. And I actually met him at a candidate forum at CSN. I think it was back in April. He has a really interesting story. He's a foster parent, a CCSD substitute teacher. So we'll see how that race goes, especially, after certain endorsements have come out.
Yeah. What about other contentious races, maybe higher up the ballot in the U.S. Senate or other primary races, maybe in some of the smaller races?
Of course, yeah. I could say in the state, one that's interesting to watch that's just neck and neck in terms of fundraising is in Nevada Senate District 5. So that's
Mm.
the incumbent is Carrie Ann Buck, who's a Republican. So she'll be running against Richard Moody in the GOP primary. But on the Democratic side, it's been a newcomer, Christian Bishop, versus the Democratic caucus-based Jennifer Atlas. So it's just really interesting to see the politics play out in that one, I think.
One that jumped out at me was the Rochelle Wynn race.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something about that one that maybe stuck out to you too?
Well, I think politics wise, like you think about the Nevada Democratic Party as an institution and who they're endorsing. And it was really interesting that the Culinary Union decided to endorse Wynn's opponent, Gioconda Hughes, instead of the Democratic Party backed Rochelle Wynn. So there might be some inner turmoil, I think, in the Democratic Party that we're kind of seeing come out.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really super interesting one because it's not just another endorsed candidate, but it seems as though Culinary has put up that candidate to run against Rochelle Wynn.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Shannon, on the podcast, we've been talking a lot about the Las Vegas mayoral race, which, as you know, could theoretically be decided in the primary if any one candidate gets over 50% of the vote. Are there any other nonpartisan races that could be decided in this primary?
Yeah, essentially, it's any nonpartisan race in which a candidate receives more than 50% of the vote. So that means they've won the election. So that includes city council. Those are nonpartisan races.
Mm-hmm.
And to my understanding, municipal court judges.
Yeah, I think all the court races are nonpartisan too. So when people vote in the primary, and I guess we both can't emphasize enough it's important to go vote in every election that you can, you might actually determine the winner here in the primary in those nonpartisan races.
That's right. Yeah, you don't even need a November runoff for that.
Shannon, what race do you think is maybe a little under the radar in the media? Maybe one that deserves deeper look.
I think judges are always a race that deserve a deeper look and don't always necessarily get it. It's kind of hard to know. There's a little reporting in the Nevada Current about Nevada or Las Vegas municipal court judges, but there's also judge races in Henderson and North Las Vegas, and that could be definitely tricky to keep up with.
Yeah, people always call me, Shannon. They're like, who are you? I don't know any of these people. Who are the best ones? And of course, I'll have my private opinions, but I try to direct them as best I can to either the candidate websites or, a lot of people who are running for judge are incumbents. And so they'll have like a track record. I mean, you could Google the names and just type in Las Vegas court or something like that, and maybe you'll get some more information.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that we struggle so much in the media to give a little light to these harder races, like the judge races that you mentioned?
Well, I think judges specifically, they're not making laws, right? And so they don't really get that same media attention that, let's say, the state legislators get or the local lawmakers get. And they don't have that kind of track record as much in the media, which can make it really hard to follow.
Yeah. I mean, there's still important roles, but I couldn't agree with you more. It's hard to report on it. Maybe we need to all figure out a different way. So tell me about that big package in the Las Vegas Weekly about the primaries.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So this package, it really tries to explain to readers what the jurisdictions are, what your local lawmakers can do, and how they can affect change in your daily life, really. Because when we're talking about primary elections and those local elections, that's where it kind of matters, is in your local community. Mm-hmm. So we really tried to dig down deeper on that and kind of explored 4 specific issues, in our package, which are affordable housing and homelessness. That's one. Education, transportation, and public safety. So we kind of talk about how different levels of lawmakers from federal down to the local can make decisions that affect all these things that affect our daily lives. So that's part of it. And then we've also got our endorsements, which are the Las Vegas editors teamed up with the Las Vegas Sun's editorial board to come up with the best endorsements. We sent out a survey to all, people who are running, basically. It's I forget how many candidates there are this election. But
I think the legal term is a shit ton.
Yeah, that's right. So we sent out a survey, and some of the questions on there are really kind of to weed out, like, do you believe Joe Biden is the duly elected president of the United States? Do you believe that people who breached the Capitol on January 6, 2021 should face criminal charges? And then we also have questions about our issues, what are your specific policy proposals for affordable housing, public safety, transportation, and education? Mm-hmm. And based on that, we come up with a list of endorsements to try to help out our readers and the local community kind of decide who they want to vote for when early voting starts May 25th and when the election comes on June 11th.
I am curious a little bit more about the process of picking some names. And in particular, I did notice that you, at the end of that endorsement list, said there's some races where we're not endorsing anyone. Mm-hmm. And what was the thought process behind not endorsing any candidate?
Yeah, our editorial page editor who sent out the surveys, they provided some insight on this. And in some instances, all of the candidates seem to come back with kind of conspiratorial extremist responses. You know, two of the questions that we asked up front in the surveys were, do you believe Joe Biden is the duly elected president of the United States? And another question we asked is, do you believe the people who breached the Capitol on January 6th should face criminal charges? So depending on responses we got from those questions, we were able to weed out a lot of people who we just did not feel like we should endorse. And in other instances, candidates failed to provide detailed info about their platform and policy proposals. So those are a couple reasons why we might not have endorsements for all the offices. And if we didn't feel as though we understood what a candidate stood for, we also declined to endorse them.
Wow. I mean, that is saying a lot because of all the candidates. So which races were that the Las Vegas Weekly and the Las Vegas Sun editors decided just didn't deserve an endorsement?
So it's quite a long list. And that's the thing about these primary elections. It's really an opportunity for a lot of newcomers and names that you might not recognize to slip in.
You know, Shannon, because so many of these races are somewhat low information or, we're just blasted with people's names and not a lot of substance, how important do you think endorsements like yours are?
Yeah, I think that it kind of gives just people somewhere to start. I don't think that people should just read anything and say, this is exactly how I'm going to vote. I'd like everyone to do their own research. But in terms of why they matter, less people pay attention to these primary elections already, and turnout is low compared to the general election. So it's easier for candidates to slip in. And due to this low turnout, primary elections, they often turn on very narrow margins with only a few hundred votes determining the outcome. So with our election package, we've done a lot of legwork with the survey I mentioned before to keep up with all the elections and the candidates in the primary, except for, of course, the ones where we didn't endorse any candidates.
And do you as a personal voter ever look at other endorsements? Like, I know the Review Journal does endorsements, which oftentimes seem to be the exact opposite of the Las Vegas Sun ones. I'm not sure how that works out. But like I said, there's all sorts of entities that do endorsements. So besides the Las Vegas Sun / Las Vegas Weekly, any other endorsement sort of list that you like to take a look at?
Well, I think there's certain groups like, there's Make the Road Nevada, I believe, has a list of endorsements, and local groups will endorse candidates, which I think it's important to pay attention to that because it's just part of a conversation. I think that's what these endorsements are, is it's an editorial board or a person saying, this is who I think would do the best in terms of our policy positions. And so the more we have that conversation, I think the more people learn in general and start to recognize these names and be more prepared when they go to the ballot box.
Yeah. And I should mention that Make the Road Nevada, the one that you mentioned, are known in our community for immigrant justice and some housing justice issues that they champion there. So looking at our primary season, is there anything else that strikes you as, the editor-in-chief of a weekly magazine that voters should be thinking about when it comes time to actually go and do your civic duty?
I think that it's important to think about the issues and how these politicians can affect that, like affordable housing and homelessness. So there's some things that federal lawmakers, like U.S. Congressman Stephen Horsford, has done. He's introduced federal legislation called the HOME Act to crack down on private corporate speculators buying up housing and raising the cost of housing in those neighborhoods. So that's what federal government can do. State legislators can allocate money to develop wraparound services for people and families who are unhoused. And the Nevada legislature did this in 2023 with a $100 million fund to be matched by the casino industry. And another example is, that government officials can do on the local level, they can create funds and programs for affordable housing and eviction prevention, which is something Clark County has done since the pandemic. So it's these policies that we can take a look at. We can look at their track record or look at what some of these candidates are saying their plans are and have that in mind when we're casting our votes.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, voter turnout for primaries is often very low. I think it hovers around 20%, which is not good. That's not full citizen participation. And incumbents, I think traditionally have this sort of foot up because of, if nothing else, name recognition. So I do think that it is important for people to do as much research they can, especially about the names that they don't know. And I just want to say I appreciate that entities like yours are putting out more information, because more is definitely better. So thanks for doing that. Are you going to keep doing election coverage as we head towards that big presidential general with all the down ballot races?
Yeah. We will plan to have another big package for the November election for sure, and try to stay on top of it as that gets closer.
Well, Shannon Miller, editor-in-chief of the Las Vegas Weekly, thanks for joining us on CityCast Las Vegas.
Thank you so much for having me, David.
Hey, before we go, I have a favor to ask. CityCast Las Vegas is doing our annual listener survey, and it would really help us out if you took it. To take that survey, just head on over to citycast.fm/survey. It's only 7 minutes long, and that's if you take your time. Citycast.fm/survey. And if you do take this survey, you're also eligible to win a $250 Visa gift card and some cool CityCast City swag. Even if you took it last year, we really need to update that data, so we would be very, very grateful if you took it again. That's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, go tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. It's a great companion piece to the Las Vegas Weekly that comes out every week. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Till then, stay lucky. Now, I'm a watcher of many races and longtime, political commentator, I guess, on some level, mostly in my own home.